Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating piece of literature, Marcus Reebok's novel, The Mall. Now, on the surface, this book might just look like a quirky story about security guards and activists dealing with the daily grind of a suburban shopping center. But as we're going to see in this explainer, it's actually this deeply layered philosophical text. We're going to unpack exactly how the author takes this incredibly mundane consumer space and uses it to dissect society, ethics, and the very way we construct our shared reality. So let's get into it.
Think about this for a second. Where does modern society actually debate its deepest truths? It's a Socratic question, meant to immediately challenge your assumptions. We usually picture university lecture halls, political podiums, or maybe even the chaotic comments sections of the internet as the primary battlegrounds for big ideas. But the novel challenges this head-on. It points us toward what is probably the most aggressively consumerist space imaginable, the local shopping mall.
Back in the day, you had the ancient Athenian Agora. Picture Plato's Socrates hanging out in the marketplace, playing midwife to wisdom, threshing out the grains of truth with absolutely anyone who would stop and listen. Now, fast forward to today. The text argues that the modern shopping mall is actually our new Agora. Just like in ancient times, this is where people just hang around, socialize, stumble into random romances, and, surprisingly, fall into these fascinating, humorous discussions about the heavy issues of life. It's essentially the ultimate philosophical battleground, just hiding in plain sight between a food court and a department store.
Section 1. Sander, the Independent Philosopher.
To navigate this modern agora, the novel introduces us to a really unique cast of security guards, and each one represents a completely distinct philosophical archetype. First up is Sander. Sander is an intellectual force. He values his integrity absolutely above all else, which he calls his impeccability. To give you an idea of how seriously he takes this, he literally brings a soy latte from home in his backpack every single day, just to avoid participating in the consumer transaction of the food court. Why? Because Sander views financial independence as absolutely crucial for his spiritual and philosophical integrity. He firmly believes you just cannot afford to speak your mind if you're dependent on the system's goodwill. He approaches life like the way of the warrior, constantly battling against societal assumptions.
But here's the thing. Sander isn't just some rigid debater. He actively trains his mind using the Zen concept of the beginner's mind. Because Sander is so sharp, he can usually predict exactly what someone is going to say way before they even say it. So to stop himself from just dominating every single conversation, he deliberately uses this technique to switch off his internal dialogue. He practices humility. He tries to approach every interaction without any preconception, which perfectly sets the stage for genuine, Socratic dialogue with his coworkers.
Section 2. Bob, the Stand-Up Satirist.
Now, if Sander is all about disciplined logic, Bob represents the raw, disruptive power of humor. Bob is a fellow security guard, but he spends all his free time developing routines for an underground comedy club. He gets this crucial reality. Comedy is kind of one of the last genres left where unfiltered truth is actually allowed. Bob is grieving the loss of his wife Jen, who is a passionate vegan. So to honor her, he crafts a stand-up routine entirely around animal rights. But he doesn't do it to preach. Instead, he uses satire to puncture the dogmatic, comfortable beliefs of his audience. He's literally tricking them into confronting systemic cruelty while their defenses are totally lowered by laughter.
Section 3. The Zen Guard.
Then we have Terry, the final archetype in our trio. And Terry's approach to reality is just radically different from the other two. While Sander actively analyzes everything and Bob actively satirizes it, Terry simply exists. His mind is mostly a blank. As the book describes it, it's a spotless, empty, pure, selfless mind and a splendid mirror for eternity. Terry has somehow managed to achieve a state of pure nirvana right in the middle of a sterile, neon-lit consumerist hub. He just turns off his internal dialogue completely. No judgment, no anticipation. He literally just floats through his shifts in a state of utter, thoughtless bliss.
Which, of course, leads to this wonderfully ironic situation. Terry is constantly winning Worker of the Month. Why? Because his blank, unreadable stare absolutely terrifies potential shoplifters. But the reality is actually hilarious. The text notes that Terry completely ignores actual shoplifters because noticing them would pull him out of his Zen trance. So, ironically, he is an objectively terrible security guard who is celebrated as the absolute best, simply because society projects its own guilt and assumptions right onto his blank slate.
Section 4. The Day of Action.
Okay, so we've met the thinkers. Now it's time to meet the doers. Our quiet mall setting is radically disrupted by a group known as the Animal Liberation Army, or the ALA, and things escalate incredibly fast. They choose the morning of a major pet shop opening. Right at 8 a.m., they trigger the fire alarms and release smoke, forcing a massive evacuation of all the shoppers. By 8:15, with the mall cleared of civilians, they release all the animals. You've got birds flying through the halls, a pony wandering around the food court. By 8:20, this highly organized group of ninjas infiltrate the supermarket's meat and dairy aisles. And by 8:30, before the fire brigade even sounds the all clear, the activists just vanish, blending perfectly into the evacuated crowd standing outside.
During those few chaotic minutes, the ALA employed some highly specific guerrilla tactics. They pushed syringes into styrofoam packaged steaks and cartons of milk. They slapped stickers onto shampoos and beauty products to highlight animal testing. They hung up crude paper banners and spray-painted stencils demanding an end to slavery and cruelty. The author neutrally presents these extreme actions as a highly coordinated, theatrical protest. The whole goal was to force the masses to actually acknowledge ethical veganism and the unseen suffering hidden deep inside their everyday supply chains.
Section 5. The Social Reality Bubble.
So why did the ALA go to such extreme lengths, and what does it actually mean for our modern Agora? This brings us to the core thesis of the book. True power is the power to define. When you can define the social reality, you have absolute power. The novel argues that mass media and societal structures build up this very comfortable illusion for us. We are conditioned to accept certain things as completely normal, like picking up perfectly packaged meat in a grocery store, while remaining entirely numb to the systemic mechanisms going on behind the scenes.
And this brilliantly connects right back to where we started. Remember Socrates in the Agora? He used a method called the elenchus, which is basically a process of intense questioning intended to expose errors in logic. The novel frames the ALA's shocking day of action as more than just a protest. It's a societal elenchus. By totally sabotaging that sterile consumer environment, they force the public to confront the uncomfortable realities that they usually just ignore. Ultimately, the narrative maps out how the ALA successfully co-opted the mass media spotlight. Usually the media dictates what the masses care about, right? But by creating this undeniable spectacle right in the middle of the modern Agora, the mall, the activists completely hijack that spotlight. The author constructs this narrative to show how disruptive action can pierce the social reality bubble, forcing a temporary waking up of the masses so they have to evaluate their own ethics.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty massive question. Are you actively participating in reality, or are you just passively wandering through your own comfortable consumer bubble? The mall uses its unique setting and these great character archetypes to remind us that the Agora is all around us, just waiting for us to engage. It challenges us to look past the neon signs, to question our everyday assumptions, and to finally wake up. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I really hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity to go out and learn more.